Good morning, members of the media, and welcome to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Weekly Media Brief. I am Michael Pierre, Acting Assistant Superintendent, and today on the brief, we have our Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith, who at this time will address you.
Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. There's just one main topic that we're here to discuss today, and it has to do with the long-awaited findings of what has been known as Email Gate. I gave the assurance to the public that I intend to close all gates one way or the other. I know these things could cause concern within the public as to the delay, and my intention is to ensure that every gate can and would be closed as quickly as possible. Just a few weeks ago, I stuck to that when it is that we revealed the findings pertaining to what was known as the plant-like substance gate. Today, we are going to come to the conclusion and the final findings pertaining to what is known as Email Gate. For obvious reasons, I will not be the person that will be revealing the findings. The investigation was very long, a few years. It was conducted thoroughly by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Office of the DPP. As the Commissioner of Police, I came after the fact. I had absolutely nothing to do with the investigation for obvious reasons. And with this, I will now ask ASP Pierre to reveal. He will just give a brief synopsis of what took place during the Email Gate investigation and the final findings. ASP Pierre.
Yes, thank you, sir. On the 20th of May 2013, a document purporting to represent emails emanating from or passing between several government ministers was produced in Parliament. The purported emails suggested that these office holders had sent messages to one another during the month of September 2012, and if proven to be true, such emails would have amounted to a criminal conspiracy. On the said day when the document was introduced to the Parliament, the Honorable Mrs. Kamala Persad Bissessa, then Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, forwarded the emails to the Office of the Commissioner of Police for investigation, and an investigative team was appointed to conduct inquiries into the matter. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service was required to gather evidence of the occurrences which were contemporaneous with the events of September 2012 in order to ascertain the authenticity of the emails and also to establish a foundation of probable cause. Taking into consideration the high level of importance of this investigation to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the investigative process was conducted in an appropriate manner. Instructively, the investigation was completed in several stages. 1. The internet service providers were approached directly for presentation and preservation. 2. One of the named email threads surrendered his device to the TTPS cybercrime unit, and it was interrogated. Representatives of the other persons named met with the police in order to facilitate the surrender of their devices for interrogation. This meeting was aborted before the interrogation of all the devices was completed, because of the failure on the part on the relevant parties to agree to an arrangement suggested by the TTPS. In accordance with the law obtaining in the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigations conducted an examination of the data received from the internet service providers in answer to the warrant in order to filter out or remove any data outside of the exact parameters of the warrant. The information was then sent through the Central Authority of Trinidad and Tobago to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The TTPS investigative team performed 2 separate assessments of the data which was provided. The first assessment related to the words and phrases contained in the email threads, and the second assessment related to the form of the emails and whether there was any obvious pattern of deletions. A further request was made to the FBI using the mutual legal assistance procedure to answer the questions that were not specifically answered in the first request. All of the evidence of the surrounding circumstances and also the data received from the internet service providers were carefully considered by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. The evidence was subjected to the full code test, which had 2 stages. The first stage is the evidential stage, in which the prosecutor must be satisfied that there is sufficient evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction. The second stage is the public interest stage, in which the prosecutor must go on to consider whether the prosecution is required in the public interest. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions was not satisfied that a realistic prospect of conviction existed in relation to any identifiable suspect with respect to the offense of misconduct in public office or for any other offenses against the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, the evidence gathered did not reach the threshold required for any criminal charges to be recommended against any person. This, therefore, brings an end to the investigation. During the process of this investigation, the assistance of the United States Department of Justice in providing guidance and assistance proved invaluable, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service extends our sincere gratitude to them. We also wish to note the professionalism and resolve demonstrated by the TTPS investigative team, having regard to them navigating through uncharted territory. I will now pass back on to the Commissioner of Police, who would respond to any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, yes, so I've now opened questions to the media, but as it stands pertaining to Emailgate, case closed. Questions?
Please remember to state your name and the media house that you represent. Thank you.
No questions? Excellent. It was too good to last.
Good morning, Commissioner Ryan Hamilton, Davis Trinidad Newsday. I know that what is very satisfying to see that there are another gate closed. We don't need all these gates all the way open, especially with such simple things to finalize. But a lot of things happened over the past couple of weeks that has raised concern of the public, include not limited to a 24-hour spate of murders.
Okay, we are dealing with, we asked questions pertaining to Emailgate. Let's stop jumping. We will open questions, okay?
I will. I'll pass on until.
Commissioner Mark Besant here from Guardian Media Limited. Are you saying, was it, although there was no realistic information to suggest prosecution in this particular case, was there in any way any authenticity that the emails of these individuals were in some way used, or was it authenticated that the emails of these people were the actual emails of which these messages were sent?
No, the correspondence that was provided that got in the hands of the then opposition leader, that it was confirmed, obviously, even prior to it being scrutinized by the relevant authorities in outside of Trinidad and Tobago, that there was not legitimate emails. So you would have seen all of the discrepancies that would have taken place. So they were not authentic emails. What was done was to verify if what was put there actually came in on the emails of the accounts of the individuals questioned. But what was actually provided and given, those were never emails.
Was the American authorities in any way able to trace the exact location of where those emails might have emanated, i.e. IP server or the particular computer, whether it be in Trinidad and Tobago or abroad? Yeah,
well, again, the document, the correspondence that was given, they were never emails. You would have seen the difference in the dates, the difference in the font, the difference in the there was an email account that was not legit. So it was the question in other words then could be answered that they were never legitimate emails. So you could not have traced what was given to what was there in the account because it was never provided. It was never there. It was something that was typed out by someone. But what was done by the police was based on the request by the then Prime Minister to the then Acting Commissioner of Police. Still, let us go forward and verify if anything of that nature was in the account of the individual's question. But the actual document that was provided by the then opposition leader, they were never legitimate emails.
So just to be clear, there was no electronic footprint.
Correct.
Any other question, members of the media?
Okay, and so, and again, as I will continue, go ahead.
As far as
Sorry. I would in next week, or very soon, I have also completed the day of total policing. That also is going to be has come to a conclusion. I just have one or two things I just need to clarify pertaining to recommendations and moving forward to prevent something of that nature ever taking place again, and that will be revealed to the public probably next week. As I said, I intend to close all the gates. I'm also moving quickly to deal with the matter pertaining to CLICO. I've now appointed 10 officers to assist the ACIB and other departments in the CLICO matter, similar to AV drilling, similar to live sport, and as I give the assurance that I will close these gates as quickly as possible. Yes, sir.
As far as the accusations that were made, seeing as they turned out to be false, will there be any kind of a follow-up with the people that actually made the accusations, who made position, wasting police time?
Okay, and let me clarify. The concept of, very good question, sir. The concept of wasting police time has to do with someone has a deliberate intent, knowing fully well that what is provided to the police is false, misleading, and then that would mean that you will be doing something knowing fully well that the police time will be wasted. We have nothing to verify that when this was brought forward to the public, that the person had any knowledge whatsoever that this was wasting police time. In fact, I wish to continue to ask the public, if you see something, say something. It is not for you to verify whether it is true or not. There's a total difference if it is that you're just trying to be mischievous and deliberately trying to pump false information, knowing fully well it is false information. So as it pertains to the then opposition leader, the present Prime Minister, at no time we have anything to believe that he had good knowledge to understand that this was false and misleading. And that was not the case. So I want the public not to perceive that I must be very sure that what I give to the public must be 100% accurate. Otherwise, it can be viewed that I'll be wasting police time. It is for you to just give information. We will then do the investigation to verify if it is legit and if we can move forward from information being turned to intelligence, being turned to evidence for possible prosecution. So in this case, this has nothing at all to do with wasting police time. I will also wish that to remind the public that it was the then Prime Minister that asked the police service to investigate this matter, no one else. Is there any other question pertaining to...
Could you pass the mic across, please? Thank you.
Joshua Simongo from TV6. Commissioner, do you have any comments on the way your predecessor would have handled this case? In a relatively short space of time, you've managed to find some closure for this case, while your predecessor would have had a number of years to do so and didn't manage to do so. Do you have any comments on that at all?
I hold my predecessor in very high regard. How he will operate as a commissioner of police to how I operate, there will be pros and cons. He may have his style, I may have mine. What I intend to do, again, the decisions that I would make, the comments that I would make, and unfortunately, Nicholas, this has been seen. This has been seen on most occasions based on not right or wrong, but based on red or yellow, based on how it will affect me politically. I have no intention to make any comment that I will hold back on based on the perception that it may affect my popularity. And unfortunately, and this has nothing to do with my predecessor. The fact is that I will make a decision, and a decision I will make because persons may be arrested. All of a sudden, I'm a PNM. I decide to clear someone of any wrongdoing pertaining to Weedgate, I'm a UNC. And if persons, their mind is so tunnel vision that all they see is yellow and red, I am not here for that. I do not see yellow and red. I see black and white. I see right and wrong. And I will intend to do what is required. I am not here in a popularity contest. So the decisions I make, the comments I would make, would be on the strict interest of the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago. As it pertains to this particular matter, had I been the Commissioner of Police, the fact is that what we have done is open up Pandora's box, because what we've seen now is that people may very well say, well, listen, all it takes is for me, if I do not like someone, type deliberate false information, throw it in someone's mailbox, and it could be seen that that person could now be interrogated and cross-examined by the police. ASP Pierre, by the way, I'd like to get back my phone, please, after 5 years.
Yes, sir.
So the fact is that 5 years, the people had no phone. But anyhow. So the fact is that unless there's something valid, you can't just use something of a correspondence to. And again, this was I think it was wasting police time. It was based on the fact that this should never have been investigated in the first place, because the only reason it was done, and in my humble view, is because of the individuals involved. Because Mr. A types something and gives it in a mailbox to Mr. B, put it into Mr. C. That will be ignored because the police will realize automatically, you would have seen that this was a false and fabricated correspondence that was typed in all the wrong manners to give the perception that it was an email. And if the police have to, we are not going to be hunting all over on a wild goose chase just because of a document. It should never have gone there in the first place. And that was my humble opinion. So if anyone feels that they want to try to get back at someone by typing false emails and put it in a mailbox to a third party and expect the police will investigate, they are mistaken. It takes more than that, because the police, we have a lot of work to do, which I'm sure you're going to speak about, than to be dealing with several years of a matter of this nature.
But is it your opinion that the person who introduced it into Parliament at the time, the current Prime Minister, should have taken the onus to do some investigations himself before introducing it into Parliament and opening up that whole debate?
No, that is not his job. I want to stay within my crease before I get stumped as the Commissioner of Police. But from what I gathered, it was several months before the Prime Minister had actually given it to relevant authorities and nothing was done. So he decided that the best avenue is to bring it forward to Parliament. At that time, there was not a 482 Gary, so he thought that if sending it to Parliament may be the best avenue to bring it forward. But he did what was required in his mind, and that's what I ask all law-abiding citizens: if you see something, say something. If you get something, give it to the police, and then we will decide whether it is something that may warrant a further investigation, or it is something that we see as just fodder and it can be ignored.
Any other questions, members of the media?
Yeah, sure.
Commissioner, as I was saying before, a lot of things happened in the past couple of weeks, including, a 24-hour spate of murders that also took the lives of one of a very popular and, legendary almost actor and playwright. I just wanted to get a little bit of feedback from you as to how investigations into those murders are going, and how is the police service treating with this minor spike in crime, because it was really a concerning thing to have that.
Sure. Well, it wasn't minor; it was major. We are seeing 24 hours. It was actually 8 homicides over a 36 to 48-hour period. It does not in any way take away the significance. We never had a spike of that magnitude in a very long time. But having said that, 4 days prior to this situation of that 48-hour period, there were 2 homicides. 48 hours after that situation, there were no homicides. So in the last 8 to 9 days, there were 10 homicides, which gives you an average of 1 per day, which is actually much less, almost 40% less than the homicide rate last year. This, however, is statistics. This in no way can make the public feel safe, which is why I do not get involved in statistics. Unfortunately, the media, and there's nothing against the media, you're right. If you see several homicides in a 48-hour period, you have to drive that home. But the media will not speak about the fact that for 4 or 5 days before, there were 2 homicides, and for the last 48 hours, there were no homicides, because that is not, we wouldn't see it as significant, we see it as expected. As the Commissioner of Police, my job is not just to reduce crime, but to take away the perception and fear of crime. Within that period, I immediately, again, because of the alert state that we have in the police service, ignited several different things that assisted in making sure that it did not continue along that line. And it involved police officers coming off duty. We had 85 that would have been off duty to come back on duty. I had police officers working practically 48 hours constantly. The officers, they stepped up to the plate because we saw what was happening. It is a domino effect, and it will happen. The same way it is that you'll have one homicide, you may see another. The several homicides, however, they were not related in any way. There was a triple homicide in Laventille, but other than that, the other homicides, there was no relationship with the other homicides that took place. What we have done, the majority of the 85 emergency response patrols came out. We started pinpointing and profiling the possible shooters, of these in these incidents. We ignited several with roadblocks, stop and search, several operations joint with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, and it has assisted. But I wish to take this opportunity to mention to the public, it goes back to an article that I read in a newspaper today pertaining to gang-related activity and the concept of state contracts. And I'll just give you a quick example. Last night, Last night there was a situation in Chumakak, Mango Alley, Laventil, where there was several units in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service responded because there was mass shooting that took place. Thankfully, no one was killed. But when it is we did the intelligence and we did the investigation, this actually sinks into the home and the root of the problem we have in this country at this time. And this example is typical. There were men from one certain gang, that's the Rasta City gang. They came from 3 different points on the hills and tracks of Chumakak and began firing simultaneously at some men in the Mango Alley area. Yeah. Then there was the other gang, the Muslim gang, led by another individual. And we know the block that they stay in, the St. Barb's area and so forth. Now, what happened is that these two gangs actually, they are just a street from each other. And what was the cause of this firing? The information has been received and confirmed that the cause for these shootings within these areas, between these gangs, was mainly for government contracts. One of which is a box train contract. Mm-hmm. So we had a shootout where several persons, inclusive of innocent women and children, could have been killed because gangs are fighting over a box train contract. That is what we have reached to in this society. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much more I continue to have to fight this down, pressure it, and no politician can point fingers at any politician. URP, CPEP, Live Sport, Color Me Orange, HDC, it has continued and it's going to be going on and on and on. It is difficult for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to go out there and do our job when it is the state is funding gang members. These individuals, they are not using the funds towards helping the community. When we go into these houses, these individuals have their fixtures, their fittings, their swimming pools, their house is valued more than all of us put together. And their home, if you sell their home, they could buy out all of C-Lots and all of Beaton put together. So they are not using their funds and their profits towards helping the community. Mm-hmm. And the communities, I wish you could open your eyes and realize you're being used. To the family, to the parents, your sons are being used by these leeches, these parasites. Yes, that's what they are. Because they are using society and killing young men for their own benefit. And then the profit that they have used is, as I said, it is not towards the community, but they are using the profit towards purchasing more sophisticated weapons, bringing in more drugs, and using the profit from these drugs to be able to purchase more weapons, hire more gang members, and be able to put hits on fellow gang members in other gangs to be able to get their contracts, which is absolutely amazing because I actually heard a politician earlier this week where that politician had the audacity to speak about the police officers. They like to walk around with big guns. But that same politician, I'm sure she would be very comfortable that the same policemen who secure her and her family, they would like to have big guns to protect her. So when it is you want to point fingers at the police, please understand that the criminals out there, they do not have small guns. The type of weapons that they have could do mass damage to many innocent men, women, and children. So I ask politicians, before you want to point fingers and criticize the police officers, we never drew first blood. The criminals out there have sophisticated weapons. It is a war out there. And you have the audacity to say that the policemen just walking around with big guns. I don't know if she was trained by Fazil Mohammed and want the police to walk with pillows. We are not doing that. It is a war out there, and the police will do what is required within the law. But as I mentioned, a war over a box train. Shootings took place over 2 gangs fighting for a box train. People could have been killed over a contract for a box train. I hope this sinks in.
Now, I want to ask one follow-up question. I'll just send it to one of my colleagues. Now, you mentioned a report that sort of solidifies statements that you made earlier as far as police, as far as gang members getting support from government contracts financially. All right. Now, I know one of the strategies of the police service is to cut off the supply lines as far as drugs are concerned and guns are concerned. In a situation like this, the supply line is unfortunately afraid to say this, the government. How is the police treating with something like that?
I need public support on this because this has gone on for far too long. As I mentioned, politicians can't point fingers because this has gone on for the last 4 administrations. And this is not in any way for us to target anyone. The fact of the matter is this sinks in down to the regional corporations, which we have seen, and at times even members of cabinet may not be aware. But this is a situation, and again, what I know persons, we love to find excuses in this country why things should not happen. Persons will say, well, why should this person be debarred from having a contract because he's not a criminal? In the United States, there are over 300 persons of interest that may be deemed as terrorists, but the United States will not give them a contract to pay in the White House. It is common sense. So if you know these individuals, you know who they are, you know what it is they are doing. In a typical art of war, what you do, instead of facing the enemy head on, you cut that financial cord, you cut the support system, you cripple them. And by doing that, it may very well increase, it might put a spike in crime, but it is what you have to do to bleed to heal. And that is the only way we'll deal with this situation. The concept of having these gang members known as community leaders, it has proven to be ineffective. It has proven to be the catalyst towards where we reached where we are now. We did not get from 120 homicides to 500 overnight. It is because of the catalyst of this situation, and we continue to bury our heads in the sand and not accept the fact that the state must stop these gang members. They must be deemed as enemies of the state and prevent them from getting state contracts. I spoke about this as National Security Advisor. I spoke about this as Minister of National Security. I'm speaking about it now as Commissioner of Police. People want to point fingers at the police. We need to point fingers at ourselves and realize that we have continued to cause the problem.
Commissioner, based on a report that I obtained recently, have you all seen a particular worry about gang warfare ballooning as well as gang recruitment across the country?
They will definitely, because of the escalation in state contracts, this has proven to be the capital for these gang members to purchase. That is what they use as capital to purchase illegal drugs and weapons. By doing that now, they can use the profit towards hiring more gang members, and that is why it has escalated to the point that gang-related activity has continued and will spiral, because they are getting the capital from state contracts. It is, if it is that we cut that cord, it will prevent them, it will cripple them from hiring gang members, from hiring what is known as shooters. When I spoke about the 50-odd shooters, they comprise the main individuals that have been instrumental in the majority of the 500 homicides last year and this year. The shooters, they operate based on funding they get from their gang leaders. The gang leaders, they sit in their towers, in their exquisite homes, and they just call the shots, but they don't operate the trigger. Those are the individuals that get paid because they know that because the gang members, the leaders, they get massive contracts and profit that is then used towards calling hits on individuals, both in their own communities and even inside the prison.
Are you all also seeing, where a lot of younger men are being lured by these gang leaders, alleged gang leaders, across the country, in terms of making it their career choice, based on observation and evidence?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago, the majority of the gang members would have been in their late teens, early 20s. Now what we are seeing is many gang members now being in their early teens. When I spoke and I made mention, and again, a politician spoke about the importance of community policing. Never in the history of this country have we seen so much community policing, because I'm aware of the importance of it. We never had that type of community policing several years ago. So when people speak about it now, we have I Support Our Service, we have Converge, we have the Commissioner's Cup, we have Street Talk that will be coming out shortly. And the reason I bring this forward is because the police service, we have our job to do to try to educate a society and a community whereby adults have now continued to compromise their situation, their principles, their morals by allowing their sons, their little brothers to be involved in criminal activity. We do not have a youth problem in this country. We have an adult problem, where adults are not adhering to their responsibility as a parent, as somebody in a community, as a big brother. So they have allowed the 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds to be involved in gang activity because they get profit out of it. You are basically prostituting your son for profit, and then after, when your son is killed, you want to hear the statement, he was a good boy, it's just the company he was keeping. It is your responsibility as a parent, and you have allowed this in that community. And you would have seen it constantly now, where police officers are being attacked by members of the community if they're trying to hold someone. There will be certain vehicles you will be seeing shortly. The vehicles will be a law enforcement item to mobilize, and we will be hauling in individuals. If it is you want to come as a pack and you want to attack police officers, I'll be taking the words from Mr. Espinay from Heritage. All will be held, and all who are involved in trying to attack the police, when the police in the performance of their duty, you would be arrested. But the fact remains, Mark, as I am stating, we have an adult problem, because that is what has caused the situation now, where 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds, you're killed, and then the grandmother with the towel wants to scream, but then what was your 14-year-old son doing Lyman 3 o'clock in the morning playing cards with 3 big hardback men? We need to start again looking in the mirror. Instead of trying to blame the police, we need to work with the police.
So you're saying that because of the adult problem, we are seeing the evolution of younger gangsters in our society?
Correct.
Ian Wason from TTT. Regarding one of the shootings, the incidents on Sunday night, the one at Laventille where the triple murder took place. Now, I'm not asking to reveal, but I'm asking if there's anything being put in place to mitigate any retaliation, because it is being said that the other side who was attacked, they know very well who is responsible, and they actually mobilizing now to respond in kind.
And that is exactly what the police we have to deal with. And then when there's a spike in homicides, the police, we are blamed. But we are blamed because you have two elements in our society that have become the scum of the earth, that have continued to be instrumental and proven to be the catalyst towards homicides. And the police now, we are asked, we should have stopped two persons who were involved in probably criminal activity, and then they were killed in an alley 2 o'clock in the morning because the police should have been there. That is impossible. We are in a situation now where we need to put an end to this gang-related activity once and for all. Because, I want to add, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I want to commend the officers. Yes, commend. There were several homicides in the last 48 hours, but 48 hours after that, they came out in full force. But the police officers, whilst most persons in our country, they were home, they were watching television, they were relaxing, I had officers out there putting their lives on the line. And then after you hear politicians upset that police are carrying big guns. But you're not upset, you're not saying a word that the criminals have big guns, and you wonder how they got the big guns, because you got state contracts from government officials. So again, people need to look in the mirror. The fact is that this situation, we have to fight now to prevent reprisal, based on what you just spoke about, because of a situation. Why? On most occasions, because two gangs fighting over state contracts.
Commissioner, the average person knows a lot about these gang members. They know their names and so forth. Yet, these persons have not been charged. They are not behind bars. Are you willing to state your opinion that there are some politicians, past or present, who protect these gang leaders from facing the brunt of the law for their political gain? Are you willing to state that?
I'd be willing to say I have no comment to make on that. But, however, having said that, going back to the anti-gang legislation, we have to work heavily to try. Again, in anti-gang legislation, I was the one to actually push this forward in the country in 2005, 2006. And it was based on the Schwarzenegger model and others where it worked. And in New York. But the gang legislation, anti-gang legislation in those countries, it is chalk and cheese to this one. Two persons actually at a corner can be arrested. Two persons involved in communication can be held. We have a way, however, we go out of our way to fight and go after the rights and protect the rights of criminals rather than to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens. Every time we try to do something, someone will come to find a way why it should not happen. And then we'll speak about the rights. But the rights, I continue to see that the rights of criminals continue to have precedence over the rights of law-abiding citizens. And I give a simple example. 5 years ago, the bail amendment bill worked. It worked because as the Minister of National Security, we were going at a ratio of less than 180 homicides per annum. So it showed it was a deterrent. Now, individuals who saw the value saying that they do not want to support it. But it puts us in a difficult position. These shooters, they walk around with their firearms knowing fully well that if they are held by the police, they can be on bail the very next day. So what they do is they will purchase another firearm and put a hit on that person who they believe tipped off the police. How can that help the police? And then you want to blame the police for not doing our job. So we are fighting against a criminal justice system that is backing up against us. And then we are seeing persons who have firearms, and we are saying, well, is this their right for bail? No, but what about the rights of the law-abiding citizens to live? And that, I think, must have precedence over the rights of criminals.
So we'll take one more question. If not,
Hi, Carissa Lee, CNC3. This is in relation to the ANV assault matter. Why did the prosecution fail to present a case in Christian De Silva's assault matter?
Why did he?
The prosecution failed to present a case in Christian
Well, I
De
wouldn't make
Silva's.
any mention because there's that matter with AMV and so forth is still under investigation. I don't know if it's the previous matter. But anything pertaining to ENV, I wish to state that I'll be contracting a geologist as well as a prosecutorial team to ensure that we can move forward as quickly as possible pertaining to that matter, similar to CLICO, and also live sport. So any matter that is presently undergoing investigation, I wouldn't want to make comments at this time.
Commissioner, one last question. A colleague sent me a question. He'll buff me if I don't ask. So what's the status of the investigation into Sanitec allegedly removing ammunition from Shagaramas?
Again, yes, sure. That's a matter that is undergoing investigation. Give Dennis Wren my regards. Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could have seen where that question came from. Any matter that is undergoing investigation would be dealt with in the right manner.
All right, members of the media, take the mic, please, Mr. Basan.
Commissioner, just one question.
Use the mic, please. And we'll close off after you.
Can you just give us an idea of what strategies are working as you continue to, fight this crime problem in terms of homicides and other serious reports of crimes, and what is not working, and what kind of support you have gotten from the line minister, Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, and last but not least, there was a party on Monday night, inclusive of several gang leaders that were present, and I understand that there's a particular attire now that looks like a bulletproof vest that costs about $1,000 that they are wearing. And I understand that officers went to that party based on instructions by a senior officer and seized one of those, that attire that looked somewhat like a bulletproof vest.
Yeah, I think it's used for paintball or something. Yeah. Okay, going to the second question. The Minister of National Security, he has assisted the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in all ways that we require. He has assisted me as well. A problem that we had previously was the fact that the law enforcement agencies will work in silos, where one arm will not be able to support the other. What we are doing now is by constant meetings, dialogue, sharing of information between the different arms of the protective services. It has assisted us, and it would assist us. I didn't complete my point on that with the anti-gang legislation. You would see the value of it in the very near future. If I can't get them one way, I would get them another, and I'll do it within the law. Pertaining to operations, I would not make mention of any matter pertaining to operations that would be ongoing, but there would be sting operations. There would be operations that we need to find avenues to take down the criminal elements, be it the illegal entry of weapons, drugs, the problem that we have seen with human trafficking, sexual exploitation, minors being abused. So all of these matters which is being dealt with, the Special Operation Response Team has been very instrumental. The reason being is that they are all totally polygraphed, and by the polygraph testing, it has proven to be very effective to ensure that there are no breaches when it is we have such sting operations. So that is why the polygraph testing would commence. As soon as I leave this, the drug testing, which is under the mandate of the Commissioner of Police Regulation 93.3, it gives me the authorization to mandate drug testing for police officers. I will be doing my drug tests as soon as we leave here. I will give you the results later this afternoon.
So members of the media, thank you for coming, and this brings us to the end of the media brief. Have a good day.